Hi, this is my Konas Pogani again, the founder and the leader of Church Governance Solutions. As I've promised that I'll embark on part 4 of this very same important, very topic that we started about 4 days ago. And this topic that says the art and the value of developing resourceful people in the church. And as I say, I'm embarking on part 4 today. And I want to speak about how to develop resourceful people. I want to speak just about the process of how to develop resourceful people. And today I want to start by saying resourceful people, when you want to develop them, you must be intentional about it. You must be aware of the importance of developing the resourceful people in your church. So therefore put up some structures that are intentional. But also I must emphasize that, as I'll be speaking about today, I want to emphasize that resourceful people don't develop only in church, but it's a background of developmental structures that comes along with it from the beginning. And when the person is still very young, and this is what we want to embark on today, just to make you aware that it's not going to start in church, to make you aware that the people that come to church, sometimes they're grown up already, and some of them have actually passed their age of learning even much. So therefore, what you would do is basically the people that are having the potential to develop as resourceful people, or those that are resourceful already, you shape them up in church and you develop them into really sharp people that will be very, very resourceful in the church. In other instances, as a church, you basically just maintain. You just basically do a maintenance mode whereby you're basically looking after these people that are resourceful. You're not really developing them from the beginning, but they've been developed by some stages of development before, or some interventions that they've gone through before. And in the church, you're basically just shaping it up. You're just basically supporting. You're just more doing the maintenance work, as I've just mentioned. The first level of development, or the first intervention of development of resourceful people that I want to speak about today, is what we call developmental interventions. Developmental interventions would be a method of intervention or intentional intervention, whereby in the developmental stages of a child, you intentionally put up some intervention in them. And this will be done mainly by the parents, when the parents are planning and intentionally developing a child and focused on developmental stages of a child, and make sure that they develop some resourceful in them. For an example, when you want to decide to get a child to be able to do some handiwork, you basically start involving them from the word go at a younger age, when they are still ready to learn, and they will develop in that regard. So many things that you would love to develop people to be resourceful in, whether it's calculations in their head. You basically develop them when they're still young. You want to develop them in skills in their hands, or even their talents. If you want to develop their talents, it is easier to develop them when still young. So developmental interventions are actually intentional interventions that one puts on, particularly at the younger stage of somebody, and these parents are playing a big role in this. Now, child care centers as well. I'm sure you'll realize that there are child care centers or preschools, or maybe where they're looking after kids from a younger stage, whereby at that point, if they put some developmental interventions whereby they are actually working on the child, shaping them up in developing their potential, in developing their skills and also talents, if that is intentional and is being put in place, this particular child will become resourceful in future. There are learning institutions as well, whereby at a younger age, children get there, learn the craft, learn the skills, they learn the talents, and they are developing. And this is intentional. And normally it's done in a form of curriculum. It's done in a form of programs that are put on and that every child goes through, and they develop through those programs and they become better children. So resourcefulness, I want to emphasize, is not developed at an adult stage only, but it is actually an intentional intervention from a younger age. And as I say, at homes, where parents intervene and develop the children, and that's where what we call child care centers and also learning institutions, as I've just mentioned it in a moment just past. And even by community, children can be developed by communities, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that communities are the ones who are developing children. They're the ones who are developing people. And in communities where they believe that the child belongs to us all as a community, whereby the intervention of the community in developing the children into being resourceful, it is actually the responsibility of the whole community, for the whole parents in the community looking after the children. Now, we're living in days whereby parents don't want their own children to be looked after by somebody else. And therefore, majority of the parents have a problem when somebody is trying to develop their children. But in that case, that is what is limiting communities actually to be involved. And that is why we're living in ages whereby some kids deviate and start doing wrong things. They go into drugs, they go into thuggery, and no parent is actually saying anything about it, because individual parents are not cooperative enough. They're not happy when others are actually shaping up their children. But in communities where we believe that children are belonging to us all as communities, children become resourceful much more earlier in their life. So therefore, communities play a big role. But also I want to emphasize that churches as well, they are part of this. Churches can develop or play a big role when it comes to developing children or resourceful people and bringing them up to standard of becoming really very resourceful. So churches play a big role, and they should therefore prioritize development of children in all aspects. And that is why children ministry is very, very important in every single church. And I want to emphasize that in every church, let's develop structures of children ministries whereby we develop them to become resourceful people. The second thing is youth programs. And I want to speak about youth programs and say they also need to be intentional. Intentional approach towards development of youth and assisting them with programs that will make them resourceful from the beginning, whereby you give them skills, or I want to say some tasks. Yeah, I want to say some allocation of tasks that you give, the work that they do, something that they do vocationally with their hands, and develop things as well. Craft of art as well. Sometimes you develop kids in that regard from the beginning, as young as they are. And in this regard, you'll realize that when you develop youth, engage them in art dramas or music as well, for instance, and they become resourceful in that regard. And sometimes you can involve them in handworks whereby they do needlework, they do sewing, they do different things, and they become resourceful in that regard. And if people start getting resourceful at a younger age, they tend to retain that skill or retain that attitude as well to continue being resourceful wherever they are. Once resourceful, you become resourceful throughout wherever you are, because that becomes a habit. It becomes an attitude that you develop to become resourceful. So people that are not resourceful generally, I want to proclaim and say it is because they've not been taught to be resourceful at a younger age, when they were young and also when they were youth. So therefore, I would love to urge communities to be involved in youth programs and be able to drive these youth programs to make sure that our youth learn to become resourceful at a younger age. There are some programs also that we call mentorship programs. Mentorship programs would be whereby mentorship of people in our communities, both young and the old, be prioritized, whereby where girls and boys get engaged in being mentored into matured people of resource, people that are resourceful from the young age. So when you mentor people, it is the elderly people that have got experience, the people that have walked the walk, they stand as examples or mentors or even role models of these young people, to make sure that they hold them by hand and they teach them the trade of doing things and being resourceful in life. So in communities, when communities are very intentional about it, they develop programs whereby we have mentorship programs where the young girls are mentored by the elderly women and the young boys are mentored by the elderly men as well. And they walk with them the walk and they show them the trade of doing things. They hold them by hand and take them along in the journey of life. Remember, in the journey of life, You don't need to explore things by your own. So sometimes there are people that have actually done or walked the walk. So therefore, join those and let them become mentors and assist you in regards like that. And I've always said this, that you don't need to pave your own way, a new way in life. You don't need to start digging a new hole. If somebody has dug it before or somebody has paved the way before, make sure that you learn from those people and they become your mentors as well. Now, there are also programs like seminars and workshops that can be done to develop resourceful people as well. So these are like parental classes where you teach even young parents on how to look after their kids, teach young parents on how to mentor their own children and teach them the trade of become resourceful. So therefore, parental classes becomes very important. Leadership workshops are very important, and they are all over the place. So people learn, and in leadership classes as well, or workshops whereby they are taught actually to become leaders. So therefore, you become resourceful, become a leader that is resourceful because of the programs and the workshops that have been set front of you. Skills, trainings as well are all examples of what can be done and what can be used to make people resourceful in their life. So therefore, when you run seminars, you run workshops, you put them into programs of skills and teach people to learn much more and make sure that they learn greater things and they become resourceful in life. That's what we call formal vocational programs as well. Formal vocational programs, this includes schools, this includes training colleges and universities as well. And it was also meant that the church could be an institute other than vocational training, like cooking and cooking schools and sewing schools, knitting schools, as I've mentioned earlier, or even computer classes as well. The church should play a part in all this to become also a vocational program directors, whereby they also put up some vocational programs that people can learn from. But also, the church can actually put up programs like this, like sewing classes. They can also do cooking classes. Churches could actually do computer classes as well. The churches can do that because church becomes very involved in community involvement. So therefore, as a church, prioritize these things. Make sure that you focus on developing resourceful people and put up structures in this line to make sure that your people develop in this regard as well. But also, I want to emphasize and speak about sports, recreation programs as well that can be actually be co-opted in this and make sure that even as a church, you can actually make sure that you include sports, you can include recreational programs, and this thing can be done in the community as well. And the church can go out to the community and support these programs and make sure that they take place. And our children can grow in those sports, recreational programs as well, and become resourceful in this regard. It is imperative that the church takes sports and recreation very serious because it is very uniting. It is actually community developing, as I've said. It actually makes people to focus, children to focus, especially the young people. They are actually taken away from wrong things like drugs, alcohol, and they are focusing particularly in sports and recreation. And therefore, as a church, you can be able to take away the children's focus from wrong things into focusing into the right things as well. So let the church play a part in the lives of the young people. Occupy them and let them remain focused, and make sure that you put up these programs for them to be interested in and play a part in them and become resourceful as they grow. I want to end up here today with part 4, and I'll be finishing this topic tomorrow with part 5, where I'll speak about the value of resourcefulness, tomorrow. Your host, Maikonas Bogane. Join me tomorrow, and for today, have a wonderful day, a blessed one, and from me, cheers for now.